About 20 years ago, the government of Ghana decided to introduce the computerized school placement system as a way to help distribute students equitably and fairly across senior high schools in the country. Along the way, in 2017 came the free senior high school policy, which meant that a lot of students had access to second cycle institutions. There have been challenges, and many years down the line, we don't seem to find a way to dealing with the problem, from overcrowding due to a lack of infrastructure or inadequate infrastructure to feeding issues because the money is just not enough to feed our students. Now, the situation has forced the current Education Minister, Haruna Idrisu, to make some pronouncement, from converting categories of schools to now reviewing the entire computerized placement system. And that's what we want to talk about tonight. Hello, good evening, and welcome to Agenda. My name is Beatrice Adu, and like I just told you, tonight we'll be going into this very system and whether or not the numbers we're seeing for our senior high schools, really something could be done about ensuring that with a system in place and what we have, we're able to deal with the problem. I do have on the panel with me Mr. Raphael Gapson. He is Secretary of the National Council for Parent-Teacher Association. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you for joining us on Agenda tonight.
Good evening, Beatrice Adu, and nice meeting you.
It's great to have you as well. We also do have with us Mr. Divine Kwe, who is Education Research and Policy Analyst. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you as well for joining us.
Thank you, Beatrice.
Of course, we have our video call with us, Dr. Peter Anti. He's Executive Director, IFEST. Good evening to you, Doc. Thank you as well for joining us.
Good evening, Beatrice.
And we'll be joined very shortly as well by Daniel Fenyi, who is Head of Public Relations at the Ghana Education Service, the GES. He'll be joining us very shortly as well. If you're joining us now, let me remind you that we're also streaming live on 3FM 92.7. Send us your comments and we'll read them back to you. I want to start with you, Mr. Kwe. There have been lots of challenges with the placement system, many not getting placed in senior high schools, and of course the frustrations that come with it. You're into research. If you can tell us what you found as the origin of this problem that we faced for many months and years.
All right, thank you, Beatrice, and good evening to viewers. I think it is best to start with demystifying the fact that, or the assumption that we have too many students that are numbered places in our senior high school. That is not the case. For instance, if you take the 2025 number of students that qualify for placement into senior high school and senior high technical or technical school, the number is around 590,000. And we have about 712 senior high schools in the country, or secondary schools in the country. And so if you do the division on the mathematics, it means that averagely we are having about 688 students per first-year student per every senior high school. So some schools even have capacity. I think every school has space to accommodate more than 600 students.
But the reason we're talking about a seeming lack of infrastructure is because the computerized system seems to prioritize the first A and category B schools, which, I mean, compounds the situation, rendering the others almost like, I mean, not having students, as it were, or not getting full capacity.
I agree with you. So like I said, so it's not that we don't have space. We have space, but the challenge is about distribution, and we currently have too much pressure on some senior high schools in the country, especially those that are category A senior high school. There's a lot of pressure on them. And as much as the pressure continues, even if you expand the space, there'll always be that pressure that continues to exist. So the challenge number one is not about this lack of space. The challenge is more about how we distribute the students among the existing senior high school. And of course, it is understandable when students say they don't want to go to some senior high school. It comes back to the fact that some senior high school, there are infrastructural challenges. That's why students would not want to go there. So it tells that, one, the existing senior high schools that are having high demand, even as much as we want to expand, that is not a solution. You expand, and then the capacity that you provide will be filled, but the demand will continue. So it has to get to a point that you stop it so that the normal intake can be absorbed, and then you are able to improve on the infrastructure challenges that are existing in some of the low demand senior high school. so that students can also begin to think towards selecting those senior high school. Other than that, we'll continue to have the recurring challenges that we are having as far as the placement issues are concerned. But again, also, when it comes to the issues of placements that we see every year, parents converging at Nat Hall or somewhere making demand, it's also not even coming back to the computer placement system. It's also more about understanding of how the system works. And I believe that if parents were to understand how the placement system works, some of them, trust me, will not be at the Nat Hall. For instance, I think you want to come in.
And if you could just wrap up on your thoughts so I can go to Dr.
Okay, that's
Anti.
fine. Yeah, I think,
Yes, I'm coming to you, Dr. Anti, because I'm not sure whether you share the same view with Mr. Pe in studio with us. We already have the education minister admitting to the fact that, yes, we have infrastructural problems. The reason, just about 2 weeks ago, he said that there were going to be some recategorization, as it were, converting some C schools into B and B to A, and also expanding the infrastructure in category A schools. You also deal into research as well. What have you found in addition to what Mr. Pe has told us as regards why we are having the problems currently on our hands?
Thank you, and good evening once again to your viewers. I think that what we are experiencing now is a manifestation of a long period of neglect of our secondary education in terms of infrastructure development, resource distribution, and deliberate policy to ensure that we bring most of our low demand schools to a certain level that will be preferred by every parent. I must say that every parent would want to have a very good education for the world. So I am not one of those who would blame parents who would want their wards to get quality education, and because of that, they would want to move heaven and earth to ensure that the world gets the best school that the child can have. What I think we have not been able to do is to have a deliberate policy that would have, over the years, bring most of our secondary schools to a level that can deliver quality education. There's been several videos online, some I have experienced myself, where you will see students in certain schools standing outside and claim to be in a classroom. There are difficult situations where students do not have requisite resources that would enable them get the kind of education that we all aspire to have. So at the end of the day, you would definitely have the pressure on the few schools that you have concentrated on, the few schools that policy-wise you have pushed most of your resources into. And when it happens like that, you would not, you the policy maker or the policy person, I mean the education manager, do not have any right to come back and blame parents that they are not accepting postings to schools that they think their wards will not get the quality education that they deserve. So I think we have neglected our secondary education to a large extent. We have pushed most resources to certain category of schools, and the results is what we are experiencing now. And I think that as we continue with the discussion, we will need to have a rethink of how we have done things over the years. And I'm glad, and I always say this, that the minister has seen the light and he wants to chart a new path. I think it is time we support him and then we get to the destination that we all deserve. We are not saying that we should create precinct across the country. No. What we are saying is that provide the needed resources to most of our secondary schools so that parents will be comforted that when my ward is in this school, that ward is going to receive that kind of education that everybody deserves. If you're able to do that, it is not about the numbers increasing. I was just checking some of the data. I realized that this year we've been able to place more students. I think 82% of the students that qualify automatically were placed as compared to previous years where our highest have been around 80, 81. So we've been able to place more students this year, but the problem still persists, which means that we have to do things differently to be able to achieve different results.
And I'll come to Mr. Gabson very shortly, who is in the studio with us. But let me ask you this very briefly. This morning, we had the Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch, Kofi Asare, Mr. Kofi Asare, join us on New Day. And he talked about the fact that the reason we're seeing, for instance, this year, the kind of challenges we've seen with parents and students and the placement is because the government decided to review this placement system, widening the access, as it were, to parents, such that if you're in Accra, you can still apply to schools outside of Accra. And also, of course, the other obvious issue about infrastructure. To what extent is this a problem based on the data you have? Going back, reviewing this policy and giving access to people who are very far from certain schools?
Beatrice, the fact is that there were reasons why we introduced a computer placement system. Transparency, give access to a lot of people and all that. In 2025, we still have those same reasons pertaining. I've been told that there's been some change in the software. I think Daniel is on the line. He would have to confirm that fully for us. But if that is what they did, then I think that they also did a very bad job, because I'm thinking that if you want to test a system for the first time and you are not sure, you always have to pilot, and that is what is done everywhere. So if they rolled it out and we are experiencing this huge challenge as we experienced somewhere 2019, 2020, then it means that they also did parents a lot of disservice, and they will need to come clear on that. But I think that the challenges of the computer placement system goes beyond this a challenge that we had this year. We have had this challenge every year. It's become something that is an annual ritual where parents will have to amass at a certain resolution center for weeks before children are attended to. So I think that, yes, there might have been some changes in the system this year, but I still believe and subscribe to the call by the minister to do a complete audit and overhaul of the computer placement system to ensure that it is fit for purpose in 2025, which is we are in 2025. AI and a lot of technological advancements are in place. We will need to get this right 2026. And I think that we have to start by doing an audit and an overhaul of the system that we are using.
Let me come to you, Mr. Gabson. You represent parents, and again, this morning we had a parent calling us that she sent her child to Bri Girls, and the overcrowding at the place was unbelievable. We've also heard from other people who have complained that children are even sleeping on the floor because the facility is just not adequate to accommodate all of them. What have you picked in terms of data from parents and their situation across the country, even as school reopens?
Thank you very much. I think that I associate largely with Peter Anti's position on most of these matters. It reflects the realities on the ground. And the truth of the matter is that reviewing the entire school placement system is long overdue. 20 years of practice of a particular system, and every year there have been a ding-dong battle of what I call the mob struggle. When these things are happening, it is those that have lost in society. They don't have anybody to speak for them. Because if you are a prominent or a high-profile person, whether in government or out of government circles, and you are a social media influencer, or you are somebody that the society see you as part of the middle class, you won't see them going there to queue. They have their own way. They will, through the back door, get these things done for them. But you see, when you are a state machinery, or when we say the state, if you read Article 38, the Directive Principle of State Policy, Article 38, it talks about educational objective. Let me just read something. It says that the state shall provide educational facility at all levels and in all regions of Ghana, and shall to the greatest extent feasible make those facilities available to all citizens. So the facilities in Presec, are they available to citizens in Kajiji, Sene East? Do they have the same facilities? The answer is no. So we create a classical system where we ourselves have shot ourselves in the foot by grading the schools category A, category B, category C, category D, and category E schools. And telling everybody that if your child don't get access to the category A schools or the category B schools, then you don't belong to the society called Ghana. Technically, it's becoming like we are in South Africa, where the apartheid regime, we have the whites having where their kids should go to school, and the blacks should have where their kids to go to school. It's exactly what we are doing. And these are the realities on the ground. That we need to look ourselves in the face, in the mirror, and look, speak to the realities. Look, I'm an educationist, 22 years practicing in this space. I understand the nitty-gritties about what it means to provide quality education. Quality doesn't exist in a vacuum. There's what we call school climate. When we say school climate, it speaks about the prevailing circumstances that makes effective teaching and learning in the school very, very adequate and makes the school so exciting that the child, even if you tell him to stay home, he sees that the school is his first home than even the home that he finds himself in. What is the school climate in the category A schools? It's becoming clear like somebody who is being given this type of rice, perfume rice, and somebody who's giving 2 Jimmy. If you put 2 Jimmy here, you put perfume rice here, and you ask us to choose in this room, everybody will go for perfume rice. That's category A schools. And he said it very well. My brother here too alludes to that. The fact that, look, all of us here, we want the best. Because all of us sitting in this studio, no matter the cap we wear, we are all parents. As soon as school placement issues comes, the BP that parents have, especially when they do the placement and where they are expecting their child, it's like a jackpot. Where they expect the child to get the opportunity, the child doesn't get the opportunity. Already, it puts a very huge scar on the mind of the child, the parent, and they think that, look, we are starting education at the secondary school level on a wrong footing.
So you say that is a problem we have created for ourselves as a society.
And
but
you see,
internationally,
there should be a deliberate state policy. And when I say the state policy, it's not about government. You see, the state machinery goes beyond government. The schools are called government-assisted secondary schools. They are not government funded. That's why sometimes when it just pisses me off. When I see government officials, sometimes they easily forget themselves. And they speak as if it's not we who have resourced them to work for us.
So let me go to the point I wanted to make, which is that you say that we have created category A, B, C, up to E schools, creating problems for ourselves. But internationally, you even have Ivy League schools.
And I'm saying
so
that.
that's not
and
like
I'm
a
saying
localized
that there
problem.
should be a deliberate policy not to make that gap widened. That's the problem we are having as a country. When we see, look, the hands are not the same. We don't come from the same homes. Are you getting it? But when you put us in the same classroom, and you put us under the same conditions, you can get somebody from a poor home. If he gets the right environment, he can excel from a child from a richer home. Are you getting my point? So my issue is that when these things are done, and we don't have a deliberate state policy to make sure that, look, the schools that were created by Nkrumah, look, go and check the category A schools. Most of them are the Nkrumah founded schools. You can do a litmus test of it. It's there. You get it? Because from the start, they got the right facilities, and then the kind of people who went to those schools, they are most of the prominent people in society.
The
and they occupy,
you would call them.
I don't know what to say, but I just know that, look, they occupy the most biggest largesse of government machinery, and the private sector, they are there. Yesterday, our Honorable Minister of Education, let me just conclude. Yesterday, when our Honorable Minister of Education was at Presec, and I saw the Kwame Despite, right? The now Kwame Despite was there as I'm told he's the chairman of the Old Students Association, was moving with him. I said, look, this school, I don't think that they need so much support as compared to schools in the hinterlands. There are schools that were founded by Jerry John Rawlings in the early 90s to 2000. Schools are founded by all those schools. We should look at them and zone them. And look, the regions of Ghana, especially the newly created regions, we should look at schools within those regions and see how many category A and B schools are there. If they are not there, what do we do as a deliberate state policy to make sure that those catchment area, we can create that sort of environment so that we can block these issues of this pressure and people pushing every length and breadth to make sure that, look, even if they have to do anything to survive to make their children get access to the category.
I'll come back to you,
we can avoid those.
I'll
I think that will help all of us.
I'll come back to you, Mr. Gabson. Let me get the preliminary thought as well on Mr. Daniel Fenyu, who speaks for the Ghana Education Service. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you also for joining us. Hello, I know you're on a video call with us. If you would kindly unmute yourself so we can hear you, Mr. Fenyu. Can you hear us?
Yes, hello, I can hear you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for joining us. So we'll go into the computerized school placement system. But first, let me get your overall assessment or general assessment of the first 2 days of school reopening. I was saying earlier that we've had some parents calling us to tell us that the schools, and these are parents who have whose children have been accepted into categories A and B schools, and they are complaining about overcrowding and the challenges there. What's your general assessment of the situation on the ground, first 2 days of reopening of school?
Yes, in fact, let me indicate that schools were open for the freshers generally on Saturday, and the reporting days were 3 days: Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday. And on these days, we ourselves as officers, we went around to first-hand witness some of the concerns on the grounds. And I should indicate that, yes, we found some schools that had some large numbers, right? So, for example, schools that are receiving about 1,000 students, just on the first day of reopening, about 800 of the students showed up on the first day. And so they witnessed some overwhelming numbers. But many of the school heads have been in this space for some time, and they knew how to manage and go about the enrollment process. So yes, for some of the schools, the numbers were huge. The numbers were quite overwhelming for them because they didn't expect that all the students, or a significant majority of the students, will show up on the first day and the second day. They thought that a couple of them will show up first day, a couple will show up on the second day, and so they felt the numbers could be manageable, especially because the Ghana Education Service had allotted 3 good days for reporting. I should also mention that for some of the schools too, they didn't have any overwhelming numbers, so their numbers were average, normal. Student turnout were expected, the numbers were expected, and so some of them went through the process quite smoothly. I should also indicate that for some of the schools, they even had an online registration process, so a lot of the students already registered with them, even online, and so when they showed up physically on the school premises, they didn't have to go through much. But all in all, everything put together, back and forth, addition and subtraction, I think the process has been fairly conducted. In some instances, has had huge numbers but had to manage and control. In fact, I should indicate that we got some reports of students who even arrived on the school campuses around 8 p.m., some of them 9 p.m. in the night, because they had to travel quite some distances. And in all these cases, some of the heads were still available, the housemasters, some of them were still available to receive these learners, even at odd hours like that. And so it has been quite conducted well. Also, let me indicate that this year has been the highest number of enrollments in our history, and so you should expect that almost all the challenges will compound. Almost all the issues we have recorded in the past may compound, because the numbers have significantly increased too. And as Divine mentioned, that the spaces we have for our learners, we have about 700,000 plus, and these are spaces that the headmasters themselves gave to us. Before we even start the placement, we go to them to give us the vacancies they have, and it is these numbers that we work with. And the numbers we have above 700,000, and the students we are to place a shy of 600,000. And
okay,
so
forgive me, if indeed that was the situation, they wouldn't be having a lot of parents calling in and complaining that they don't seem to have space for their children and wards. But again, Mr. Enti, Dr. Enti mentioned earlier that if you're saying that, and you're admitting indeed that the numbers have been increasing, so, and in fact from 2020, the numbers increased from like 400,000 plus, and now we have 590. So Dr. Enti was saying earlier that should be a failure on your part, knowing that gradually the numbers have been increasing. So you should have had the kind of systems in place to make it easier for us rather than compounding the situation. Wouldn't you agree with him?
All right. So indeed, this is the situation. As I mentioned, the Ghana Education Service has sufficient space for all the students in the country. In fact, after placing all the students, we will still have over 100,000 spaces left. And so that's the official data we have and we are working with. What you see as a challenge, or as though the numbers are so overwhelming and there's a problem and all that, is because almost all the 590,000 students and their parents are looking for some particular schools, right? And so even though we have various schools, in fact, at the moment we have close to 1,000 second cycle institutions, 700 plus senior high schools, 200 plus TVET institutions, right? And so we have the spaces for them. But you get to realize, and this is observation we made from resolution centers, complaints parents were making, our own engagement with some of the parents, engagement with the students. You know, throughout the process, we have been with the parents and the students because we ourselves also wanted to understand what their issues are and how we can address them. And the pattern we have observed is that a lot of the parents and the students themselves wish to have been placed in grade A schools or category A schools. And then a significant majority also wanted a few of the category B schools. And so you get to realize that almost all the huge numbers we see are converging around some particular schools. And so it makes it look as though the Ghana Education Service do not have space for our learners, but we have space well over 700,000 spaces for our learners. And in fact, as I mentioned, even after placing all our learners, we will still have over 100,000 spaces left for them. And so
again, very briefly, there could be space, but that was what Mr. Gapson was saying earlier. What conditions are prevailing in those schools? Because if there's space and the conditions are not as good as you would find in categories A and B schools, you don't expect parents to be happy to send their children to the places.
Indeed, for all the schools, they have the facilities. Let me give you an example. So you go to some of the e-blocks that we have. They have all the facilities. They have all the infrastructure. They have all the human resource. But trust me, everybody would want their disadel. Not really because they have more advanced infrastructure, but I mean, some of these schools have been around for a very long time. They have produced some old students in the system. People know how strong their alumni are. And you know, for even the category A schools and some of the advanced schools we see around, for some of the facilities they have on the campuses and the advanced laboratories that they have, some of them are contributions from their old student associations and other partners that they have, far from even the government's interventions. And so sometimes it is not because the facilities in the other schools are not good enough or they don't have the resource, but because of the experiences, because of how some of these schools have been around for a long time, almost everybody would want to associate with some of these category A schools. So indeed, everybody would want quality for their children, but people are more drawn to schools that also have the name, that have the brand in the system, and not necessarily because there are facilities or infrastructure there that are special or different from the other schools. But then again, that also brings us to a very important point that the Minister of Education has mentioned, how Honorable Beatrice Adu has mentioned.
And we'll go into that very shortly, Mr. Fenye. When we come back, we'll look at the proposals converting some categories of, C, B, A, and expanding some infrastructure within some category A schools, as well as what he told the press yesterday about reviewing the computerized placement system as well to ensure it's more efficient. You're still here on Agenda on TV3. Stay with us. When we come back, we'll look into these and the way forward.
When you are going to buy a paint, don't look left, don't look right. Go straight and grab the luxury acrylic paint. No be any paint, be paint.
The luxury acrylic paint.
Paint champion. When you are going to buy a paint, don't look left, don't look right. Go straight and grab the luxury allographs paint. No be any paint be paint.
The luxury acrylic paint.
Paint champion.
When the sun rises, there is hope. While the
And you're still here on Agenda on TV3. My name is Beatrice Adu. Tonight, we're looking into the computerized placement system, the challenges that parents, students, and wards have had to face, and really the proposals coming from the Education Minister on looking at the entire system so that we deal with this problem. Before we went on that break, I was on the phone with Mr. Daniel Fenyi, who speaks for the Ghana Education Service. I'm coming back to you, and I would want you to be very brief so I can give the opportunity to the other panel members in studio here. You were going into the proposals coming from the Education Minister, the one about converting certain category C schools into B to A, and then expanding the facility within A schools, for instance, and also the bit about reviewing the entire computerized placement system. You are the implementer of government policies. What proposals have you already presented to the ministry in looking at these challenges?
First reaction is that we have just come out of the computer placement process. Learners have reported, a significant majority of them have already reported to the campus. And so as a team, we are coming to sit back and do a debriefing. By that I mean we are now coming to do a general assessment of what went well, what were the challenges, and going forward, what should be done. And we are coming to do this because throughout the entire process, we kept engaging parents, we kept engaging students, we kept engaging stakeholders generally to take their views. I mean, we're generally conducting a data collection exercise throughout the whole period. And the initial data we have received, one is that a lot of the parents and the students wish to enroll in grade A schools. And so, for example, majority of the people you saw converge at the various resolution centers, it is not because they had not gotten placements. In fact, every single one of them already had a placement, but they were there because they wanted to change from the schools they have been originally placed into another school, preferably a category A school. So that is the first observation we made from the various concerns that were coming up strongly. Number two is the issue of residential status. So many of the learners, back in JHS 3, we made them select 7 senior high schools for us so that we place them in these 7, any of the 7. And we made them, I think out of the 7, we made them choose at least 2-day schools. Some of the concerns were that,
Mr. Fenyi, forgive me. I'll be grateful if you can be very brief with your comments so we can move on to the other panel members, please.
I was only outlining the data we have received.
And if you could just make it snappy for us, because I need to give opportunity to other people to also talk so we can make progress.
That's fine with me. And so issue of residential status changes and all that. These are some of the data that we have received. So we are going to do a debriefing and then have a holistic assessment. But the minister's first reaction is that let us embark on an aggressive, robust expansion and provision of infrastructure, facilities, resources across all the senior high schools in the country. And when we are able to do that, consequentially, some of the grade C schools will now become grade B, because for those that probably do not have science laboratories will now have science laboratories. Those that do not have computer laboratories will now have computer laboratories. And by that, some of these schools will move from their current category to another a higher category. And I'm saying this to emphasize that the categorizations are not just nomenclature. You need to provide facilities, infrastructure, intervention, resources, teaching and learning materials, and all that. And once you do that, the categorizations become only a consequence of the interventions you are making. And that is the focus of the minister, to ensure that he embarks on aggressive infrastructure expansion across all the schools in the country. And then by so doing, we can get more of the grade B schools getting into grade A and more of the grade C schools getting into grade B. In fact, there's another school of thought that believes that we should even scrap the categorization from the system. And that's also a proposal, a very strong point of view, and we believe that we would also look closely at that concern or that angle and see how best that could also be worked with. So generally, we are undertaking a data collection exercise, taking all the views, strong proposals coming from all angles, behind the table and look at which ones work out, ones are more applicable, which ones would help our learners receive better and quality education, and then we roll it out.
I'm coming to you, Dr. Pitanti. Before I come to the studio panelists here, I don't know whether you've been convinced by the submissions made by the Public Relations Officer of the Ghana Education Service as regards the way forward dealing with this problem.
No, actually, I think I wanted him to clarify whether they changed the software for this year's school placement. That's the information I'm picking from various stakeholders in the system. That this year they changed the software, and that accounts for some of the challenges that we are facing. But let me go straight to the minister's proposal. I think it's brilliant. Over the years, this is one of the things that we've pushed strongly, that ministers of education should create when they are in power. And we say this because we classify schools and we categorize schools based on certain variables. I've said that those four variables, two of them are policy variables. They are variables that you need to do something with it so that the other things will automatically follow. So if you look at infrastructure and then you look at teaching quality, these two variables are very important. So once we were classifying the schools, we knew that the schools that are in B, C, and so on and so forth need infrastructure. They need to improve on teaching quality. They needed the resources and they needed the facilities. Over the years, we've not done that. And so I'm not one of those who think that categorization is causing problems. No, you will need to classify schools. Everywhere in the world, there are classifications. Even in the universities, there are classifications of the various universities. So that categorization is not the problem. The problem is that as a country, as policymakers, as leaders of the education system, we neglected the essence of the categorization, which was supposed to enable us plan the distribution of educational resources. That's what we didn't do, and we have left the schools to rot over the years. And now the Minister of Education wants to revive it. I think we need to give him the kind of support that he deserves. And of course, Daniel, what the minister B and 10 category B schools to a grade to A, and then they will select 10 category A schools and expand infrastructure. I think this is what he said. He didn't say there's going to be a robust infrastructure across the various schools in the country. That will also be problematic because that will defeat the essence of the categorization. I think that this is time the little money that we have is pushed towards the category Ds and Bs and Cs and bring them up to a certain level that everybody will be happy. For example, we know that about 3 or 4 regions in the northern part of the country don't have any category A schools. Why are we doing that? So by policy, we should be able to create about 3 category A schools in all the regions in the country. This is something that is supposed to be policy oriented. It is not for the parent to do this. If you are able to provide infrastructure, you are able to provide the resources. I tell you, the variable of demand or preference of school, which is also part of the category of the variable that is used to categorize schools, would automatically come to play. By 2-3 years, the variable of academic achievement or performance that is measured over the years, that also helps in categorization, will also come to play. So all you need as a Ministry of Education, as a ministry, is to focus on just 2 variables, infrastructure and teaching quality. And we do that by concentrating on those that are already down there, push the resources there, build the laboratories there, give them the needed attention, and we will see a dramatic change in the next 5-6 years in education.
Mr. Gabson, what have you got to say as regards the way forward on this?
Having traversed across the country and known what goes on in school settings, I fully associate with what Dr. Pate is saying. And you see, it's even backed by law. It's here. The directive principle of state policy, Article 38(3), it says that the state shall, subject to the availability of resources, provide a equal and balanced, it said equal and balanced access to secondary education and other appropriate pre-university education. Pre-university education is pre-tertiary education. Equal access to university or equivalent education with emphasis on science and technology. These are just other areas. So the point is that we fully associate with the fact that, yes, the categorization are not necessarily a problem, but the over-concentration of resources to make sure that the category A school keep on remaining the center of attraction and the center of excellence is the problem. So those who are stuck back, what do we do to bridge the gap and make sure that within that enclave, for instance, if you go to the entire Bono East region, you will not get more than 2 or 3 category A schools. Ahafo, Bono, the 5 northern regions, the category A schools are not many. So if there's a deliberate state policy to make sure that those areas, the less endowed schools are given opportunity and well-resourced, I just think that this whole headache that at the end of the day, as the PRO of GES wholly admits but finds a way to dance around it and says that, oh, there is not that the parents, the students have not been placed in schools, but the parents are not satisfied. Why? Who will be satisfied with a school that, excuse my language, when he goes there, he knows that garbage in, garbage out? Who will go into that particular situation? And you see, let me say this thing, and it's the reality on the ground. Most often, even those of us who are running, public officials who are running government or state institutions that, oh, we are providing education, we ourselves, we don't take our children to the public schools. We take our children to the private schools. You get a point? So the argument is that if it was good, why is your child not there? And you see, this categorization, even if you go to the basic schools, it is worse. They've not been categorized, but look, if you go to the basic schools, and this infrastructure issue you are discussing, the basic schools is worse because government concentration of late has been that, look, we are neglecting the basic school, which is the foundation of education, and we are rather resourcing the secondary education and leaving the basic schools. So the issue is bigger than what we are discussing on this platform. So when we say the state, it's not about government. It's not about GES. It's not about the Ministry of Education. It's about all of us who think that education should be the center of excellence. It should be the breeding ground for us to unveil talents and make sure that those who have talents in sports can be given the opportunity to use their sports to be able to bring something. Those who are into the creative arts. That I saw the results, the BEC certificates of this famous musician, Shatawale. And when I saw it, and I said, is it true? And somebody told me, yes. But look at him. Look at just last week, or early this week, the kind of crowd he pulled and the kind of magic he is doing. These are things that we need to look at it together in the collective interest to make sure that, look, this kind of politics and this kind of trying to play the devil's advocate, like, oh, we are doing well and those things. Look, when you are doing well, the results will show. But my point is that the reality on the ground is that, look, the categorization is not necessarily the problem, but where we should take our resources where it is most needed so that we can invest in those places to be able to upscale up the quality of education
and
there,
I'll come
and
back
make
to
sure that things go well for
I'll
us.
come back to you very shortly, Mr. Gabson, but I'm coming back to you, Mr. Kwe. When the minister talks about reviewing the computerized placement system, which has been in place for about 20 years, as a researcher, what would you expect him to consider so that we deal with this problem?
All right, thank you, Beatrice. I'll come to your question, but before that, I think we are all talking about the same thing. And then as I started talking about, the issue is not about non-availability of space. We have space in our senior high schools. It is about how we distribute them. And then, of course, if you distribute a student to a place that is not well-resourced, it's obvious that there will not be the desire to accept going there. Now, talking about investing in expansion of category A, B, and C school, I think we can't again continue to expend resources equally, but it has to be on equity base. So let's put equity at the heart of our resource distribution. That is the advice I'll give on the minister's quest to invest in infrastructure across our senior high school. Equity must be at the heart of our resource distribution, because if you look at our educational system, we spend on 3 times more on persons that are in the 20% wealth quintile. And if you look at the 20% wealth quintile, students that are in category A, mostly will come from the rich families. So if you continue to spend on the category school, it means you'll be spending more on the rich people. So there's the need for us to put equity at the heart. And again, we shouldn't simplify that by way of also upgrading infrastructure in the less desirable school, or will automatically translate into acceptance. Of course, there will be acceptance because infrastructure has been improved, but if pre-sec is pre-sec, Achimota is Achimota. So the demand will continue to be there, even if you build the best of schools in a particular, or improve the best of schools in a particular region. So there has to be a strategy to ensure that students are able to be attracted to such schools, the new schools that we want to upgrade. Students are able to be attracted to it. And then also, for a very fact that we can't continue to have it as a will that if I said I don't like this school, it's pre-sec I like, and then I'm pushing all the effort to go through. No, we can't have a policy that allows people to have their will. If but infrastructure is well suited,
are people not having their way because of the same problems?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's a challenge in the system, because if you continue to have a system that allows persons to say, I want to change my school, although the best of infrastructure. If you look at some category B school...
And if you could be wrapping up for me.
You are not being fair to me.
Yes.
All right. Well, then to your question now, then the placement system. I think the challenge is not only about the software that places the student. The software is able to place about 80% of students. And I think here with a little improvement, we're able to do that. But if you look at other conditions that come on before the placement, for instance, parents, they are supposed to be involved in the selection of school. They were not involved. And then at the end of the day, when the schools that the awards have selected, they said they don't like it because they were not part of it. If they were part of it, the schools that the awards have selected, they will know that these are the approved schools. But once they have not been part of it, we will continue to see this challenge. And then previously, there was a system that allows for parents to check if, after the registration, selection of schools, if that is what has been fed into the system. So they'll just text a short code and then the output comes. They're able to confirm. I don't think that system is working anymore. If that system continues to work, parents will be able to check that, okay, if the school have selected, because we have instances of parents that were thrown into NAT hall. Some of them are fairly, they selected the schools, but at the end of the day, when they were inputted into the system, there were no schools that were selected. So I think that system also has to be brought back.
So you mentioned a bit about the involvement of parents, and that's where I want to come in. But I will come back to that very shortly after this break. Stay with us, and then we'll have our final thoughts as well. About actually looking into the proposals made by the Education Minister and the way forward as regards the computerized placement system. And Mr. Kwe was actually on talking about the need to involve parents, and that's why I want to come back to you very briefly, Mr. Gabson, because before this government, the PTA was scrapped. It has been brought back. I want to ask you two questions in one. It has been brought back. What are you looking forward to in terms of what needs to be done to make it more relevant? And again, I'm aware that you have sued the Ghana Education Service. Of course, Attorney General is part of it because of the fact that you feel the government is being too involved in this association. If you can tell us more about that, and we'll get some quick response from the GES representative and get your final thoughts.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that the PTAs have moved from the traditional PTAs to the modern PTAs. The days that PTAs were just existed in schools and then they could manage their affairs have grown. And every organism grows. Journalists can be there in their small community, decide to come together to have a mother umbrella body to regulate their space better. And the law provides for that. I just think that we have to respect the law and allow the law to work. When you read this Pre-Tertiary Education Act, which gives the GES a mandate to operate, there's nowhere in this Pre-Tertiary Education Act that says that PTAs are under the GES to regulate it. So when GES under the previous administration, the ministry and GES decides that, they are changing the PTA to make it PA. They were changing our identity, and we said, look, you can't change our identity. We're an association. So we resisted it, and we made noise about it, and you all supported and realized that, look, we're all parents. This is a non-statutory body that is private in nature, and a statutory body, public in nature, trying to regulate. We are in different space.
So why have you still gone ahead to sue?
So the current government, with a very good will, made statements, and we think that it was okay. Only for us to have engagements. We were part of the National Education Forum and a whole lot of meetings. We met the Director General and he told us, look, all what happened under the previous regime will be a thing of the past. They will never go back to back and visit those things. Only for us to be ambushed. With another guideline, they've reduced the 14-page guidelines of the former regime to a 10-page guideline and trying to tell us that they want to be more Catholic than the Pope. PTAs are not under them. We are parents. They can regulate us. At best, if they think that something, look, if not for us, if we don't take our children to school, they don't even have work to do in the first place. The children are bona fide property. That's why when anything happens to a child in the school, the headmaster doesn't even have authority to take any decision without the parents consenting to it. So what is ours? We are saying that the law is the law. So we petitioned the President of the Republic, and let me give credit to His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama. We petitioned them we wrote the letter on the 6th, we submitted on the 8th. On the 9th, the President responded, and we got the letter on the 13th, where they directed the Minister of Education that quickly they should look at our issue, review it, and then take appropriate action.
It has not been done.
Nothing has been done.
So that's why you see.
And the Director General and his people and all his agents, they are going around, started creating confusion in the system that, look, the PTAs are now under their watch and they are going to regulate us. How do you regulate us?
So you're asking the court.
And we've asked the court, we've made a lot of demands. And when we get an appropriate forum, we'll discuss. Because if we want to discuss this in here, my brother Divine will say that, look, I've taken over the whole space, even though he's a parent.
Mr. Fenyi, can you respond to this? Are you aware that the GES has been sued because Mr. Gabson feels that you want to regulate them when they are an independent parent association, not under you? How do you respond to that quickly before I get the final word of the rest of the panel?
Yes, indeed. Because the matter is in court, we are unable to comment on some of the merits of the issues. However, let me indicate that teachers, i.e. Ghana Education Service and parents, we are collaborators. We collaborate to ensure that our learners or our children receive quality education. We are not competitors. We are not fighting. The bottom line is that all of us together want to collaborate and make sure our students get the maximum best of what the Ghana education system has to offer to them. And so our parents, we will continue to work with them. There's no attempt to regulate them. There's no attempt to determine what they can do and what they cannot do.
I will have to say thank you.
I'm
sorry, I'll have to say thank you to you. Let me get 30 seconds final word from Dr. Pate and then that of Mr. Kwe. Dr. Pate, if you can give us your final word in about 30 seconds, please.
All right. So what I think we need to do going forward is to support the minister to bring to life all that he is planning to do. But I believe that we need to review the whole system in two ways. One, we need to do an audit of the system, and if truly that the system was changed just a year and it's causing problems, then it's a very good point to start from, to review, to make sure that it's fit for purpose next year. And also we have to review the model of school selection. We've said this several times. The current model of school selection dates back to the colonial days that they used to ensure that there's administrative ability to finish the placement in time. Now we are in a technological era where I think that students should be allowed to select their school.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pate.
After they have seen their results. That is a position that we've held for long and hope that they would adhere to it.
Mr. Pe.
All right, so back to the point I made. It's good to invest in infrastructure, but let equity guide it. And when we have invested in less endowed schools and having improved their infrastructure, there must be a campaign. We shouldn't assume that by virtue of improving infrastructure in such less endowed school automatically translating student desire to go there. Let's come back on sensitization campaign so that students can also have the desire to go there. And then there must be a strict application on when students are placed there. The desire to change should not, or the will to change should not be given automatically. And then the placement system, I think that we need to also improve. Now we are currently doing 80% automatic placement. Once they are going to review the system, let's see how we can improve on the 80%, and then also embark on a campaign that allow persons to understand how the systems work. You can get grade A and may not get pre-sec. Somebody may get no, you may get grade 6 and may not get pre-sec. Somebody can get grade 8 and get pre-sec. This dynamics needs to be understood, and I think campaign will help for parents to understand that.
Thank you very much. Let me just read about two of your messages. Chris Afenyi says the problem with overcrowding in schools is because for 8 years, Akufo-Addo government didn't expand the existing infrastructure. Prince Henry Koforidua says the earlier we stopped the classifications of schools in this country, the better for all of us. Thank you very much. Prince Nanaya Oyok as well for sending us your messages. But thank you, Raphael Gapson, Secretary, National Council for Parent Teacher Association, for joining us on Agenda tonight. Also to you, Mr. Pe Divan Pe, Education Research and Policy Analyst. Thank you for joining us. To you as well, Dr. Peter Pate, Executive Director, IFEST, Education Think Tank, and Daniel Fenye, Head of Public Relations at the Ghana Education Service. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us on Agenda tonight. My name is Beatrice Adu. Join us again next week. Have a good day.